You're tuned into the Awesemo
We're gonna have like four
NBA
guys that are
strategy
60%
show.
owned,
Awesome.
and it's 10 o'clock. We might get more.
Well, that would actually drive down ownership probably.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, January 7th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. And if you had fun yesterday, you're probably not me or Adam, that's for sure. What a ridiculously awful slate. And now today, we're just flipping it all on its head. There is value everywhere. We have guys like Giannis that are going to project for like 1.8 fantasy points per minute in their current matchups with some of the guys out. We are in for a truly insane Friday. What a way to cap it all off. Hit that like button if you're here. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. I don't even need to ask you because I know, and I assume everybody else understands it. What an awful slate yesterday.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't really mind slates like that. I mean, obviously they suck, but like, there's nothing really that I'm even looking. Like, I wasn't going to win that slate. I'm just not going to play enough of the guys that you needed to play. The only spot that I am actually annoyed about from yesterday is, and I mentioned this to you as soon as it happened, I ended up over the field on Brandon Clark, which I had said all day that I thought he was really risky. I didn't trust his minutes with everyone coming back, and then I still ended up over the field. He sucked. Like, I deserved what I got, but that was the only spot where like I was mad at myself for what I did. But other than that, there was just no way I was winning that slate.
Yeah, like I was never going to get to enough Tatum for him to be in enough of my lineups. Like the 10% ownership I think he got was fine. I took a stand on Quickly, not Fournier. So I got the wrong coin flip of the Knicks out where Evan Fournier dropped 62 DraftKings points yesterday. That's his. I mean, does he even have 2 back-to-back games where he's gotten to that recently? It's been since he was playing 40 minutes in back-to-back games in mid-December.
He has 3 30-point games this year. They're all against the Celtics.
Yeah, that's so dumb. It's truly. He played 42 minutes yesterday for reasons. He was 10 for 14 from 3.
Yep.
Oh, DFS. Oh, DFS. I mean, it got a little bit more normal by the end of the night. Like the Clippers and Phoenix game kind of like normalized the ownership and the people that performed well. In the early games, if you were highly owned, you were terrible. Just especially for like the first 2 hours, everything that everybody was on was awful. It was nuts.
I just pulled up lineup study because I was curious. Of the top 10 finishers on DraftKings, only one of them was a 150 maxer.
Yeah. Petty snuck in at 8th.
Yeah.
Chipotle stuck in at 10th. Even if you want to start opening it up even further, like you're not getting a lot in the top 30 or so because those lineups just weren't going to get built.
Yeah.
I mean,
the winner had 4, third place had 1, fourth had 4, 5th, 6th, and 7th all had 2, 9th had 1.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. The person that finished 4th had a 5-man Suns stack, which is probably exactly what you want to do when the first 3 games of the night are absolute tire fires. Both Camerons, no less, and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, which is a lineup that I would have had a lot of trouble getting to.
I mean, since I capped it at 3 and said if I play 3 guys from the Suns running back with a Clipper, I couldn't have gotten to it.
I had to cap it at, I did cap it at 4 when I started doing my late swaps because I swapped into a lineup that had like 6 Suns and a Clipper, and I was like, let's just make that 4 and force in more Clippers.
Yeah, I didn't bother late swapping anything.
I did just because, but I didn't have anything else to do at 9:30. I knew that there was nothing coming. I think the highest I got to like 120th or something. 129 I got to. That was the best thing that I had. I think that might have been the lineup that I told, or we had. It is that lineup where we had a 2v2 of Adams and Paul and Looney and something else. So
yeah, mine ended up, I don't know, not doing well. My best lineup came in 496. That wasn't that one.
Well, that's because you're worse than me. So let's dive into this. We've got 9 games to talk about. Some of them are probably not possible to talk about, but we're going to do our best either way. Again, if you haven't hit the like button, do so now. The San Antonio Spurs, we're out of the gate for like the first 3 games where this might take for the entire hour. San Antonio Spurs on the road They are 6.5-point dogs in Philly. That might actually end up being worse. We shall see. For San Antonio, no Derek White, no Keldon Johnson, no Doug McDermott, no Devin Vassell. Lonnie Walker is questionable. Thad Young finally could have actually had a chance to play some minutes at the 4. He's out for COVID. Still no Zach Collins. But not a lot of ownership coming into this San Antonio team as of yet. So Trey Jones is the most owned guy across both sites. We've got Bryn Forbes, 27% owned right now on DraftKings. And I don't even think that that's insane, but we could talk about how getting away from Bryn Forbes chalk is probably going to be pretty easy today. DeJounte Murray is like properly priced for a day like today, and it's easier to get to the other pay up studs. What's the first thing you want to get to when you look at San Antonio? And if the answer is Bryn Forbes, just turn your camera off.
Bryn Forbes or Lonnie Walker?
Yeah, if Lonnie Walker is in shooting guard, small forward, 4,100, he will be like the most functionally appealing option here. But you're getting to a lot of, I think, or can get to a lot of Keita Bates, Diop, Trey Jones, Lonnie Walker, Bryn Forbes.
I mean, give me some DeJounte too.
Not that I disagree, but I think that he's going to fit into the like Jason Tatum mold of yesterday. When you start looking at Giannis and Jokic and find out how easy it is to get to those guys, DeJounte Murray starts to get squeezed a bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's played 391 minutes without Derek White on the floor this year. He's averaged 1.5 DraftKings points per minute, 41% assist percentage, 26% usage rate. Still think he's a pretty good play at 9,600.
I agree. Happy to get there. GPP only, so to speak.
Yeah, sure.
For that one, like he's just not going to look as good as some of the other pay up options. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm happy to get there too. I worry how great an assist rate can be when there's no other talent on the floor and you're a 50% true shooting guy. Like this could actually look pretty bleak against Philly for DeJounte Murray. But again, certainly has a ceiling. He's definitely the best player that's available here. You can get to Jakob Poeltl. There's 27 million other centers that are just as good, if not better, for him today. So San Antonio is wait and see on Lonnie Walker and play the starters that aren't, just play the starters, I guess is the easiest way to say it, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Do we want to do that right now? My assumptions?
Sure.
Murray and Poeltl, obviously.
Yep.
I think Keita Bates, Diop has to start at this point. They don't really have like the size of other guys that can do this.
Right.
And then it's going to be 2 of Trey Jones, Lonnie Walker, Bryn Forbes.
Josh Primo.
You think Josh Primo could start too?
I could, yeah.
Okay. I think if Walker is in, he's starting.
I would assume so. Like the caveat here is that who knows what goes through Pop's head as far as like his second unit rotations that he wants. But I would assume that it's Murray, Poeltl. If Walker is in, then Walker. I agree it's probably Keita. And then Forbes, probably.
Yeah. Forbes or Jones, I think, works either way. It was Jones earlier, like last week, right?
Yeah, but that was for Murray. Jones has only played 57 minutes alongside Murray this year.
Okay.
By comparison, Forbes has played 210.
Okay. Forbes makes the most sense then in that spot. And that's why he's pulling 27% ownership and he's 3,500. Got to get there. A lot of value here for San Antonio. We'll know a little bit more later on today. Adam, you and I are going to be back talking on the deeper dive. So we'll have some more information. I thought San Antonio would look a little bit better than they do. But unfortunately, there's a lot of value out there. Sliding it over to Philly now. They're not exactly healthy either. They are slowly but surely getting things back. No Maxey, no Shake, no Paul Reed, no Jaden Springer. Q tag on Danny Green, which I think is interesting. Isaiah Joe, also questionable. And then Matisse Thybulle is off of the injury report. So highest owned guy in this game, Tobias Harris, is 17% owned on FanDuel at 7,900. He's now cheaper than on DraftKings. So that price has finally come down. He's 7,800 there. Embiid is like 13% owned. I think that looks all fine. To me, this is a 4-man lineup. Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, Embiid, and Korkmaz are the guys that I could really conceivably get to. If Danny Green is out, I think that opens up a little bit of value for like Niang or Thybulle, but we have such good, like ridiculously good value plays that it's really hard to advocate for just guys that get 4 more minutes on the Sixers as the 7th guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was going to point out that Niang's 3,500 played 29 and a half minutes last game. He was terrible, but if you tell me he's getting that kind of run at 3,500, he looks good. But with the amount of value on this slate, trying to, like wish 28 Niang minutes into existence just isn't really at the top of my list.
Yeah, you kind of got to just stick to the guys. This is one of those days where it's going to be really hard to play someone that isn't a starter.
Yeah, or at least like a guy that is closing.
Or a high per minute backup. Like
right.
The 0.7 fantasy points you get out of George Niang that could maybe play 28 minutes is still like, okay, maybe that's a good play.
Right.
That's insane today. Do you have a preference for any of these guys on Philly?
Not really. I mean, I think they're all priced pretty much correctly. The one thing that I would mention, and I mentioned it the other day too, all of Embiid, Harris, and Curry can be expected to see an increased role in terms of assists. We saw it with Curry last game. I think he had like 12 assists. But with no Maxey and no Milton, Curry's got a 28.8% assist percentage this year in 186 minutes. Harris is at 23.2%, and Embiid's at 26.4%. So, I mean, I think you could see in any given game it kind of go to any of those guys. But I do think it makes, in particular, I think it makes Curry, their absence makes Curry have the biggest gap, I think, between where he normally is and where he is now. Because normally he's a relatively low volume, very efficient shooter that doesn't give you a lot in terms of peripherals. Now he's going to be a relatively low volume, very efficient shooter that also has a lot of assist opportunities.
This game is going to be oddly, incredibly important and really, really hard to pin down, which is the worst kind of recipe for a DFS matchup. Anything else here for Philly?
Nope.
All right. Now we're on to the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 4.5-point dogs in Brooklyn. And I'm going to let you know right now, and I think we might be in agreement. If this ownership is correct, we are going to be playing a lot more of the Milwaukee Bucks today than what we're currently showing. At least I am. For Milwaukee, we have no Drew Holiday now, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, Dante DiVincenzo, George Hill. Basically, if you play guard for the Bucks, you caught COVID because of it. Brook Lopez is also still out. Boogie Cousins is no longer on this team. Giannis, 18% owned on FanDuel, 19% owned on DraftKings. I want to start here with Giannis. I have him in this spot against Brooklyn at 1.8 fantasy points per minute in 36 minutes.
I think that seems about right to me.
He is, to me, very easily my favorite play of the day in terms of pay-up options. I think he beats Jokic, even though Jokic is against Sacramento, just because the lack of Drew really changes Giannis a little bit more positively here. If he's 18% on FanDuel and 19% on DraftKings, I'm just going to have significantly more. I don't know how people don't get to more of Giannis. There's infinite money to go around.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we have a 14-game sample size going back to the start of last year of Giannis playing without Holiday and with Middleton. 1.8 DraftKings points per minute, 34.9% usage, 30.6% assist percentage, 35 minutes per game. That's kind of the big one, is that if you can actually expect Giannis to play a couple of extra minutes, over 14 games, he's averaged 34.7 minutes per game. That's not insignificant when you talk about somebody that produces at as high a rate as he does, and who, typically kind of falls behind guys like Jokic because on average he plays like 4 minutes less.
I expect him to get a couple extra minutes, just given how many bodies are out. It's at Brooklyn. This is one of like their bigger games. So you would think if you're ever going to play a couple extra minutes because of competition, this is that spot. Like, all signs to me point to wanting to have all of the Giannis. I have like 50% Giannis right now in the crunch that I ran. I would not be mad about that at all. And I hope that holds by the time we get to lock. No problem with it at all. We got to talk about the rest of these guys, though. Chris Middleton certainly gets a bump. We have him at 10% on FanDuel, 8 on DraftKings. I would like to be higher than both of those numbers. Bobby Portis is 33% owned on FanDuel, where he's only 5,700 and has power forward eligibility. He's a little bit lighter owned on DK, another guy I still want to get more than 6% of. Assuming Jordan Nwora starts, I think he's interesting-ish at 5K. I'm guessing Javonte Smart plays. I don't think he's a particularly good option here, even in big minutes. He's not a big per minute guy to begin with. I don't think that I'd get to anything else from Milwaukee, but I want a lot of Giannis, Middleton, Portis, Nwora to an extent. What do you want?
So Middleton, I think, is a good tournament play. The ceiling's obviously there. I will point out he doesn't really get, or hasn't at least, gotten a huge bump in the games Drew's been out. For those 14 games that I mentioned with Giannis, Middleton's at 1.12 DraftKings points per minute, 27.5% usage rate, 24.5% assist percentage. Pretty just kind of standard stuff for Middleton. So I think that Holiday being out probably increases the likelihood of Middleton just going off, because when you think about Milwaukee, like Giannis is always or almost always going to get his, but then between Middleton and Holiday, they kind of just are going to share. Now at least it's like there's only one other guy that Middleton has to just sort of be like, hey, I'm the hot hand here, let me take this game over. Yeah. So I guess that makes it a little bit more likely, but he doesn't see the same bump in production. I am really interested in Bobby Portis.
I think that bump is a little misleading because there's also no Allen, Connaughton, like all of the other guards that can be functional human beings don't exist here. I think you naturally just see Middleton you're going to give Middleton a little bit more run with Drew out than he would normally get. Because
minutes, sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, even like usage too.
I mean, Grayson Allen's a 15% usage guy. You can replace him with another. Pat Connaughton's 14%.
Right, but like we're replacing it now with Javonte Smart, Wes Matthews, Mamu, Thanasis. Like I think they're even less shooters. I'm not saying like he should be a 35% usage guy, but I think that it reads him a little light.
But it also, at the same time, a lot of those games were from last year when you had Brook Lopez, and he's a lower usage guy than Portis.
That's true. That's a good point.
Which brings me to my next point. I really like Bobby Portis.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario, barring foul trouble, injury, anything like that, the worst case scenario is you're getting 28 to 30 minutes from Bobby Portis at 6,500, which not ideal, as a center only option, but still fine. Cousins is gone. They don't have to just play Mamukelashvili 18 to 20 minutes here. You could very easily get a 34-14 split in favor of Portis. And if that happens, he looks fantastic.
Yeah, they're not really lacking in like those kind of guys too. Whether you want to play Mamu more at center or just play Giannis more at the 5 here in this one, like they can do that kind of stuff. Bring on Semi instead of Mamu. Like those minutes can be there for Portis. For 5,700 as a power forward center on FanDuel, he's one of the best plays of the day.
Yeah, completely agree with that. DraftKings, he's riskier because he's center only at 6,500, but he's still just. I think this is one of those spots that we like a lot in tournaments where we haven't seen this rotation. Well, all season, but like we haven't seen even this front court rotation in a while where Cousins isn't there. And like Cousins is the type of backup center where once he was, a part of the rotation, he was kind of never going to just play 12 minutes. He was always going to get, his 18. Now that he's gone, like, yeah, you could just still get 28 minutes from Portis. Mamukelashvili plays more, Shemi plays more, whatever. Giannis plays more time at the 5. Any of that can happen. But the range of outcomes also includes Portis just going back to playing 33, 34 minutes.
I think he looks really good. I got 18% of him right now at 6% ownership. I'd be really happy with that. There are a couple other centers that we're going to need to talk about moving forward that will greatly outpace him, but I think he looks fantastic, and FanDuel's a no-brainer. Nora just sort of exists for me here. Like I'm happy to get to him. He's probably like a 10 to 15% guy for me. 5K. He should be. I wish he was more than just power forward eligible, but it's a good value.
Yeah, I think he's still a good value at 5K. 0.88 DraftKings points per minute this year for Wara with Giannis on the floor. He is at 0.77 DraftKings points per minute. So just looks like a pretty good value, assuming he's going to play 30 plus minutes.
All right. Anything else here? If potentially like if Rodney Hood starts or Wes Matthews starts over Smart, like they're sort of just random throwaway guys, right?
Yeah, on this slate. It's just, you said it earlier, it doesn't strike me as a slate where I need to really be prioritizing guys that average, 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute.
I like Tim Hardaway today too, but Curtis McMillan, if you'd rather play Tim Hardaway than Portis on FanDuel, you can wave goodbye to your money. Anything else here for Milwaukee?
The only thing I was going to mention is Boogie being released had nothing to do with Boogie. They wanted an open spot for the trade deadline. They've already said that they potentially end up bringing him back.
Yeah, it's also a money thing. Just changes the way Milwaukee is a heavy tax team. You just don't have to pay it the same sort of way. This was always going to be something that happened. Like DeMarcus Cousins was going to play precisely 0 minutes in any sort of playoff rotation. If they went up against the Knicks, or the Nets, they would never play him. James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving would put him in a blender. They would give up a bucket at the rim every single play. Let's go to Brooklyn now, where luckily for us, this one's easy. We boot Kyrie back out of there. Patty Mills back into the starting lineup. James Harden's 27% owned on both sites. Durant's 15 to 20. And to me, those are the only two guys that you can get to. I like Harden a little bit more than Durant. No real preferences either way. You just have enough money to get to both guys.
Yeah, and their salaries came down. The sites need to. I hope they figure this out quickly, that you can't drop Harden and Durant's price because Kyrie's back when Kyrie's going to sit out like every other game. Because now you're just getting an extremely discounted Harden and Durant. I'm with you. I prefer Harden. He's really taken a step forward from earlier in the season. He's been the one really dominating production in the games that, him and Durant were both active, and they're still about the same price. But 10-3 for Durant is also a very cheap price tag. So I'm not saying like I don't like Durant. I expect I'll get to plenty of both of these guys.
I don't have anything else to say here for Brooklyn. I don't really care who starts. I don't think any of it matters. We saw David Duke. We saw Bruce Brown not play. I don't think any of it matters. I'm not really rostering anything else from Brooklyn.
Yeah, I don't think it matters either. Duke played 18 minutes. Claxton started over Aldridge. He played 23 minutes. Aldridge played 16. James Johnson played 9. Mills played 35 off the bench. I think that is likely to continue. He probably starts tonight, but his salary came down, but I still don't think it matters for this slate.
All righty. Let's then talk a little bit about the schedule for the rest of the day. NFL on the contrary, coming up next at 11 a.m. NFL Top Stacks tool. NFL Top Stacks show coming up at 12:30 p.m. The Yahoo NFL show is at 1. The NFL Strategy show is at 2. We've got a No House Advantage NBA show at 4:30, heading into the NBA Deeper Dive at 5, and then NBA Live Before Lock at 6 p.m. NBA ownership projections, NFL Top Stacks, and NHL player rankings are all free for today. All righty. To Utah we go. Now, we're not actually going to be talking about Utah for any real way here. We're just going to say a general thought process. Here's what's going on for the Jazz. There is no Mike Conley, no Donovan Mitchell, no Bojan Bogdanovic, no Rudy Gobert. That's 4 starters. No Joe Ingles. So like if Royce O'Neal happened to be out, that would have been all 5 starters. So we're missing basically everybody there. Not so fast, though. Questionable tags on Royce O'Neal, Jordan Clarkson, Rudy Gay, and Hassan Whiteside. The entire 10-man rotation. Wait, that's 10, right? The entire 9-man rotation for the Jazz is either already out or questionable. So, don't really know how to talk about this other than we can say what happens if every individual guy is in. Hassan Whiteside is $3,500 on DraftKings. If Hassan Whiteside is in today and starting, and even if he's not starting, it might not matter. He's one of the best plays of the day, one of the easiest point per dollar plays you're going to find. 56% owned on DraftKings, fully warranted.
Yeah, without a doubt. He's 3,500. I wish this game would just get canceled because it's going to just ruin the slate.
It is.
Yeah, Whiteside 3,500.
Thank God it's at 7:30. If this game was in Utah, this would be a nightmare.
It would actually make the slate. So it would make the slate a huge pain in the ass, but it would also make it a lot easier to make money.
Yes, agreed.
But Whiteside at 3,500. There's just nothing to even really say. It's a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy that is playing with, or hypothetically playing without Rudy Gobert at close to minimum salary. There's just not a whole lot you have to say.
He can't. It's hard to fail without if he plays. I gave him 26 minutes. He could play 32. I don't know what he can do, but.
Has he started?
I tried to be as pessimistic as I possibly could. I mean, if he did, it's like one game. Gobert hasn't really missed any time, to my knowledge.
He hasn't started this year.
All right, next guy up. I think we can go to either way, but I think this one's the easiest. Jordan Clarkson, 5,200 on FanDuel, 5,500 on DraftKings. If he's in, he's playing 32 to 36 minutes. He's going to be the highest usage guy on the team by a mile, and he's priced like he's going to play 24 minutes as the 6th man. You just play a ton of Jordan Clarkson. Yeah,
it's just like Jordan Poole. Nothing can go wrong.
There you go. But
so he's played.
Clarify that for the people that think you'll be serious.
Clarkson's played 186 minutes without either one of Conley or Mitchell on the floor this year. He has a 34.4% usage rate. He is, like you said, he's priced to be the 6th man and play 24, 25 minutes. Outside of, obviously anybody can have maybe he'll shoot 4 for 42. Outside of that type of game, it's just kind of a no-brainer.
Rudy Gay is 4,800 on FanDuel, 4K on DraftKings. I assume he starts and plays 30 minutes. And if he's in, he is now also one of the greatest plays you'll find today. 59% owned on DraftKings, 43 on FanDuel. I don't have anything else to add. He's just an exceptional play.
Yep. Like all three of these guys, assuming that Clarkson, Gay, Whiteside are in, and I'm not saying, like, I'll never say, like, you have to play 100% of somebody, but I would not be surprised if I just basically rotate 5 lineup spots tonight and the other 3 are just these 3 guys.
Yeah. And I can't even say like they're immediately in cash games because you might have so much value that you start working your way. Like my optimal lineup had Jokic and Giannis in it this morning.
So the thing with these guys too, the reason that I feel comfortable saying like if I had 100%, I would not care at all, is they're not just good point per dollar plays. These are all guys that produce at high rates and can give you legitimate fantasy scores. You're not talking about, oh, Rudy Gay's 4K. It's very likely he gets me 26 points. Like he's a good value. You're talking about Rudy Gay is just completely capable of going for 40 and nobody will bat an eye.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I have him hitting like his ceiling to me at 30 minutes is 41 fantasy points, which is like massive. He can play more and he can conceivably score more. It's nuts. I don't know what else is going to be in some of these lineups. You're going to want to pay attention. Those are really the only 3 guys that I want to actually focus on. Trent Forrest is probably going to look like an interesting value play. Eric Paschall, I think 3,500 on DraftKings power forward center could look like an interesting value play. Royce O'Neal is going to have a ton of minutes. He doesn't really get the same sort of bump you would want, but he's only 4,100. We're going to talk about this again during the deeper dive. It's hard to really dig in, but if Clarkson, Gay, and Whiteside are in, no matter who else is in, those guys are fantastic no matter what.
Someone said, but I won't roster all 3 in the same lineup. Absolutely will.
Yeah, 100%. There's no reason not to. Wouldn't even think twice. Question. Yeah. I assume I'll have all 3 of them a lot.
Yep.
And probably a 4th.
Yeah, I'll say I typically don't go more than 3 outside of like teams that are, it's on a slate of this size. I typically won't go more than 3 outside of teams that are extremely shorthanded. But this counts as a team being extremely shorthanded.
Yeah. So pay attention to the deeper dive so we can touch on this a little bit later.
Like just to kind of quickly follow up on that, I guess. As far as where I would just vaguely, like from a macro standpoint, think about limiting the Jazz. Like I wouldn't want 3 of like O'Neal, Forrest, Azubuike, Paschall. Probably wouldn't want 2 of those guys, honestly. But especially if you like take O'Neal out of that, like I doubt that I want more than 1 if everybody's in. I doubt that I want more than 1 of like Forrest, Azubuike, Paschall, Butler, any of those guys. But as far as Clarkson, Gay, Whiteside, O'Neal, if I get 3 of those guys together, I couldn't care less.
Yeah, like Hassan Whiteside's 3,500. You can play him like if Rudy Gobert was healthy, you can make a case to play both of them today.
We already had that slate once this year.
Yeah, I know. So it's there for sure. Utah may small ball.
With who?
Yeah, they don't have anybody available. They might have to, they're closer to canceling this game than having to do something different. They have nobody here. Now, I'm really curious to see if they sign anybody, but
yeah, and as a follow-up, because he said, so you would rather have chalk your lineup of 3 spots, leaving only 5 to get different. No, I'd rather this game be canceled so I don't have to do that. But kind of taking what's available, assuming this game plays and assuming those guys are in, I would rather only use 5 spots to get different than light my money on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to suddenly play bad plays just because. Toronto is just as we go from Utah, which is like a giant shrug, to the Toronto side, which is super easy. I don't think that they look all that interesting on DraftKings. I think Scotty Barnes and OG Anunoby continue to be mildly underpriced on FanDuel, or just better options because of positionality. Do you see any real priorities from Toronto, or is this just sort of like one Toronto starter ends up in a lineup?
Yeah, it's pretty much that, I think. There's clearly no lack of value tonight, so getting whoever scores like the most, I mean, it's going to sound obvious, but like whatever guys are the top, 1 or 2 raw point scorers on the slate in the mid-range are probably going to be pretty useful tonight, just because it's going to be easy to get to them. There's not really, you're not going to have any trouble there. So guys like Van Vliet that you can expect to play 39 minutes if this game is close, or Siakam or Barnes, they all give you those raw point ceilings, but they're also less likely to succeed than a lot of other options, which kind of just pushes them to the peripherals.
By the way, I want to put this out there right now. As of right now, the Utah Jazz only have 2 guys on COVID protocols. If this game doesn't happen, they have to forfeit this game. This is not a postponement. This game cannot be postponed unless they have more COVID. Because because they can sign one guy right now. But if all of their questionable guys can't play, they are just forfeiting this game. This is not a COVID-related issue. So be prepared for a garbage Utah team to be here, especially on their way trying to get into Toronto, where like it's a little bit more complicated from a COVID perspective to go to a different country and then try to leave without having COVID. So let's keep that in mind there. This is not a game that I believe can be postponed. It just should be. Let's go to your Washington Wizards at the Chicago Bulls. This one's a little bit easier to talk about in that I think that both sides of the game stink. Spencer Dinwiddie is off of health and safety protocols. We still have no Rui, no Thomas Bryant, who's working his way back, no Anthony Gill. Greg Monroe is now with the Wizards. Davis Bertans is doubtful. Montrezl Harrell is questionable. Based on everything we have right now, the highest owned guy on DraftKings is 0.6% owned Montrezl Harrell, which, take whatever you want out of that kind of information. The highest owned guy on FanDuel is 5.9% owned KCP. I don't think that I'll have a single share of a Washington Wizard today.
If Harrell's back, I agree.
Okay. You can absolutely play $6,400 Daniel Gafford playing 32 minutes with Greg Monroe behind him otherwise, but this is a full DFS wasteland for what we're looking for today.
Yeah, and just to elaborate, I guess, for anybody that's going to be confused because of what Washington's been recently, Dinwiddie being back cuts into Beal's not only probably his playing time, but his usage rate to a little bit, his assist percentage to a lot. If Harrell is back, it's bad for Kuzma, who not only is he going to lose at least a little bit of usage with Dinwiddie back, but he's been the backup center. You've seen crazy rebounding numbers from Kuzma as a result, increased usage as a result. But if Harrell's back, you're getting 48 center minutes from Gafford and Harrell. So Kuzma essentially goes back to being what he was at 6K. Like when he was 6K, he was a mediocre play in this role. Now he's 8K. Just a big difference not being the backup center.
Yep. All right. So out of Washington and on to Chicago. The Bulls are still without Alex Caruso. They're still without Javonte Green. Tony Bradley is back. Everybody else on this team isn't all that interesting. Highest owned guy in this game is DeMar DeRozan at 13% on FanDuel, 8,700. Sure. Everybody else is in single digits. To me, I'm probably not getting to anything from Chicago. If you want to go to DeRozan, Levine, or Vooch on FanDuel where they're a bit cheaper, I can get it. But to me, there aren't any good plays here on Chicago again either. This is very much like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum yesterday, which obviously worked out for Tatum.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like Toronto too. Like, would anybody be surprised if one of Vooch, Levine, DeRozan happens to go for 55 plus? Like, I think the answer is no. But there's also just so many plays that are more likely to succeed. It pushes them to the category of like, okay, well, I've got my, very likely to succeed guys in this lineup. Now I need somebody that's lower owned, but still has that 50 to 60 point ceiling. That's where, Vooch, Levine, DeRozan fit in.
I don't have anything else to talk about for Chicago.
Neither do I. White's pretty cheap, but still with everybody back, it's tough to get there.
Yeah. That one's a pretty easy cross off. Next one isn't. Dallas Mavericks are 2-point favorites in Houston, 216 total. Mavs, no Luka Doncic. It's looking like he is doubtful. Kristaps Porzingis is out. Willie Cauley-Stein is out. We've got Trey Burke back. Jalen Brunson, I know you haven't seen this yet. Jalen Brunson is 5,300 on FanDuel today. We have him projected for 79% ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have... Obviously, that's an absurd amount of ownership. And anytime somebody's that popular, you can start to just find alternatives and hope that like they roll an ankle or something. But yeah, I mean, that's what he should be at 5,300.
Yep. There's nothing like he's in 93% of my FanDuel created lineups. He's very clearly the best FanDuel play, and there's no one even in the ballpark. He's 7K on DraftKings, 34% owned, still exceptional. He's just a different player when Luka Doncic is off the floor.
Yeah, last two seasons we only have 3 games this year with Doncic and Porzingis both out, 6 since last year, but a 25% usage rate in those 6 games, 30% assist percentage. If you just look at the games without Luka this year, Brunson, so this is including games where Porzingis was also in, but you have 14 total games without Luka this season, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute, 26.4% usage rate, 39% assist percentage, 35.1 minutes per game for Jalen Brunson. And oh, by the way, they're playing the Rockets.
Yeah, and that's the big piece here. So we're also seeing Dorian Finney-Smith get about 15% ownership. I don't know how I feel about that. I think there's just going to be better per minute guys that will look like better values. Maxi's pulling a bunch of ownership, 20% owned on DraftKings at 4K. Totally understand why that's happening. And then we got Tim Hardaway Jr., 13% owned on FanDuel at 5,800, 20% owned on DraftKings at 5,100. To me, this is very clearly Brunson and Hardaway as the two best bets on DK.
Yeah, agreed. Hardaway this year, 221 minutes without Luka or Porzingis on the floor, 30.2% usage rate, 1.18 DraftKings points per minute on 49% true shooting. That's without those guys on the floor, not accounting for Brunson. If you put Brunson on, Hardaway's played 148 minutes, still has a 31% usage rate. The guy's going to take a lot of shots, may or may not be efficient, but he's cheap. He should play 28, 30 minutes somewhere in there, and he's going to shoot a lot.
Shooting guard small forward too is massive. You can really move this around, especially in the 8 o'clock window. Like he really would end up in all up and down a DraftKings build here. But yeah, he looks great. Those two guys are, to me, very clearly the two best options. I think Smith and Kleber are the two like ancillary pieces. I don't really have anything else for Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, Maxey at 4K looks good. It's just that there is so much value on this slate, and he's not a great point per minute guy. But he did play 35 minutes last game, which is a pretty big deal because we had seen his minutes kind of ramping up since returning from the COVID list or injury, whatever it was. So, I mean, if you're going to get 30, let's call it 34 minutes from Maxey against Houston at 4K, he's going to look like a very good value.
All righty. Anything else here for Dallas?
No, all the starters look good. Powell will be the most difficult to get to just because he's a center. He's $100 more than Whiteside, and that's not even comparable.
For Houston, the only guy in double digits in ownership is Christian Wood, 18% owned on FanDuel, 14 on DraftKings, where he's up to 7,100. I actually have a little bit more interest in this Houston team than it appears where the ownership is showing. I'd like to get to a little bit of Jalen Green, I think, in GPPs. I'd like to get to a little bit of Kevin Porter here, 6,300, only 6% owned. I think, maybe I'll do some commentary on Kevin Porter, try to do my best on that one. But for 6%, like at 6,300, I think he's a little bit underrepresented here for what we're going to get. This is not the same sort of Dallas team. This game should be competitive, could play 34, 35 minutes. How do you feel about Houston?
I think I'm with you. They're not the most appealing team, but one other thing to like from last game is they only ran a 9-man rotation, which meant you actually got 32 plus minutes from all 5 of the starters. Now, granted, there's always blowout risk in a Houston game, but they're at home against a depleted Dallas team. They're only 3-point dogs. You shouldn't be assuming this game blows out. If you are, then you probably should assume every NBA game blows out. So I think it's reasonable to think that you're getting 32 plus from all of these guys again. Christian Wood at 7,100, I think looks like the best option, center only. So still plenty of opportunity costs there, especially if Whiteside's taking up one of those center spots. But Porter Jr. at 6,300, Tate and Green at 5,300 and 5K. Like if those guys are all going to play 32 plus, they all have pretty nice ceilings.
They look like the most interesting GPP plays that nobody's touching. I don't know why people wouldn't want to go to starters on Houston in a matchup against Dallas.
You can throw Eric Gordon in there as well at 4,600. I mean, I think the answer is that like every player on Dallas, for example, looks better than every player on Houston pretty much. Every player on the Jazz is going to look better than every player on Houston. Like when you have entire teams that are good values, it's just going to drive down. Like the Houston guys are still good plays. On a lot of slates, they would be really popular, but today you just can't get to them that much.
I actually think Kevin Porter is like an actual good play in comparison to 6% ownership. He showed up in 15% of my sims.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think they're going a little bit under-owned relative to their chances of success, but I also don't think they should be popular because there's like what you have to give up is so expensive.
Like, I think that Kevin Porter should be more owned than Christian Wood today. Given the amount of the amount of centers that exist, Whiteside soaking up that ownership, Jokic, Giannis. I'm sure I'm missing like 10 other dudes.
Yeah, but Giannis is a 4.
But he also has the center eligibility. Sure. Like that's just another spot where like he's certainly filling up some amount of center eligibility. I think it's just easier to get to a Kevin Porter at 6,300. Anyway, play Kevin Porter and don't assume anything about his family lineage. Anything else for Houston?
No.
By the way, I know you mentioned the 9-man rotation. No Tice at all was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, me too.
All righty. Well, Let's talk a little bit about prize picks as fast as we possibly can, because we still have 4 games to get to in somehow 20 minutes. So that should be a real treat. But shout out to prize picks. Look at the banner at the top of the screen, awesemo.com/prize picks -promo. You can get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You can get a deposit bonus. We've got a free prize picks player prop tool on awesemo.com that can help you handle all of your construction here. You're basically building parlay cards. That's going to be, you're looking to put 5 over-unders on, and if you hit them all, you can get up to 10x your entry fee. You don't have to worry about sharks or optimizers or mass entry or anything like that. So I'm going to hit Adam with a couple of my favorite player props from a fantasy point perspective here. We'll see where he ends up landing. Let's look at Jordan Clarkson, 36 fantasy points.
Over?
I got it right on 36, actually. It's kind of crazy. I was figuring they were going to like underrepresent it a bit. They didn't. Yeah,
I have it at like 36 too. So, I kind of expected it to be a little bit lower.
Rudy Gay, 32 fantasy points. I might actually take the under there.
Yeah, I'm leaning under.
But he's still clearly like an exceptional play. No, not at all. Not at all. This one, I think, has to be a little low. Yeah, you might want to grab this one immediately. Chris Middleton, 38 fantasy points.
Under.
Interesting.
I'm not really on Middleton. Like any more than normal. He's just like, I think that's pretty close to right. Like I'll have him at like 37 or 38.
Okay. I like the pace up a little bit. I think he's going to play a couple more minutes than he normally does, and I think that's what's going to let him crest that number. I hate you for taking an under on my boy Chris Middleton, though. Final one. This one, I think you and I are both taking a smash over on. Bobby Portis, 33.
Yeah, over. I mean, I get there if he does only play 28 minutes.
Yeah, you and me both. So that's prize picks for you today, everybody. Make sure you're signing up, awesemo.com/prizepicks-promo. We're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit, but some of this gets easy. Minnesota Timberwolves are 5-point favorites in Oklahoma City. I'm at the point now where I just want to skip any time that we can talk about Oklahoma City. Minnesota's got everybody back. No one is owned more than 12% on FanDuel. That's Vanderbilt, or 6% on DraftKings. That's Vanderbilt. I think Minnesota is in the same group as Toronto and Chicago, where like you cannot prioritize any one of these individual guys.
Yeah, but you're also not going to be upset if you get to them because Towns, Russell, Edwards, all completely capable of just going nuclear and being somebody you have to have, but just unlikely to do so. And there's so many good plays on the slate that like you have your very, very popular plays, but then the next tier guys that are still really good are just going to be naturally a little bit lower owned. So it pushes the players like this a little bit further back. But obviously you're not upset about any Towns, Russell, Edwards, or even Beverly Vanderbilt that you get to.
I don't have anything else I need to say about Minnesota.
Nope.
Oklahoma City is basically in the same sort of bucket. I don't find them to be all that interesting. Looks like we're getting Dort back. To me, if you get to any shares of Shea, Dort, or Giddey, that's all more than reasonable. Giddey is $7K on FanDuel, always kind of popular, should be. SGA is 8,500, point guard, shooting guard. If you get a little bit there, it's fine. But on DraftKings, I think it's just sort of 3 potential guys, and you cross off everybody else.
Who's the third one?
Shea, Dort, Giddey.
Oh, Dort. Okay, I didn't know if you were including Dort in there. But that's where I'm at. Like,
although Dort, for some strange reason, $5,700 power forward, which
that's kind of what I was looking at. I was like, that's a pretty tough sell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Gilgeous-Alexander's priced up a bit. Giddey's priced up a bit. You prefer either of those guys when the other is out because Giddey gets more usage, SGA gets more usage, and assist opportunities. But yeah, they kind of just fall into that same category where you're not surprised if they have a big game. Chances are you're not real happy about it because it's going to be tough to get a lot of them.
Lou Dort is 6'4". Per Cleaning the Glass, he has played 0% of his minutes at the 4 today, or this year, and 0% of his minutes at the 4 last year. He's only played 19% of his minutes at small forward. So,
really? What are they classifying? Who do they think is playing small forward?
That's a good question. Let me look. I'm working on it.
Like, are they just calling Giddey the small forward that is also the point guard?
Yes. Giddey is technically the small forward in that distinction. I don't really care which direction you want to go with that. I mean, Josh Giddey's 6'8".
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes back to like who's he defending, because offensively he is the point guard.
Yeah, 100%. I'm totally with you on that one. Like Shea, Dort, and Giddey are basically some mishmash of 1, 2, 3, and I can go any direction for whatever you want to.
Yeah, and I don't watch much Utah, so I don't know. I would assume Dort is defending whoever the best dude on the other team is, kind of regardless of what position they play.
Depends.
At least
depends
1
on
through
who
3.
it is.
Yeah, 1 through 3 at least.
Yeah. Like tonight, I would guess he's Edwards.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. All righty. Sacramento at Denver. Luckily for us, Sacramento is pretty easy to talk about. 7.5-point dogs, 222 total. Terrence Davis continues to be questionable. Rashawn Holmes is still out. So highest owned guy on DraftKings, under 10%. We get Harrison Barnes at 12, Bagley at 11. Halliburton can round up to 10, same way as Fox can on DK. I'm going to say it like I said it for everybody else here. There are no real priorities for me for Sacramento, but unfortunately, there are more guys that I could potentially roster here than I would like to. But Sacramento looks okay-ish for like 6 guys deep.
Yeah, the only negative I would point out is that once again, even with Terrence Davis out, they ran Mo Harkless for a legit rotation. He played 18 minutes. Barnes has just been getting like 30 minutes or so recently. And so that's a bit of an issue there. You really would prefer him to be playing 34, 35 minutes. He is still pretty cheap, though. Hield's been getting pretty substantial run. If he shoots well, you should get 28 to 30 minutes. Halliburton and Fox, I think, are pretty safe as far as minutes go. But even 2 games ago, it was like 34 for Fox, and I think 33 or 34 for Halliburton. But yeah, just the only negative here, outside of the fact that they are playing at Denver, is that they are running a deeper rotation than we've seen at times this year.
Any chance we get less of Damian Jones today and more of Tristan Thompson?
I don't know.
I don't think it matters, but just it is Jokic.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it kind of comes back to like, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Like it's throwing, you're on the Titanic one way or the other.
Yeah. I just in case somebody's looking at Damian Jones at 4K, like I don't think today is that day.
I mean, I think he's fine. Like I think on average, I think he's playing 28 minutes, but I also just like, if Whiteside's in, I'm just playing Whiteside.
What is Middleton without Giannis usually? Exceptional. Just FYI, Adi, exceptional when Giannis isn't on the floor. But let's skip that. That's for sure. Denver Nuggets, mostly healthy here.
Did we just compare Fournier to Middleton?
Yeah, I can't. He's driving me insane with this nonsense right now. So they're not comparable at all. Not even in the ballpark of comparable.
Like I normally don't give actual NBA takes because I don't pay a ton of attention, but like, holy shit, that's bad.
Fournier is like the homeless man's Chris Middleton. Okay.
And saying that is probably still disrespectful to Middleton.
Yeah. Aaron Gordon, probable. Bones Highland, probable. Q tag on Jeff Green and Zeke Naji. I put them back in. Josh trashed Fournier yesterday because he wasn't a very good play. I don't care that he went off and made 10 out of 14 threes.
I love that too, because I'm pretty sure you probably said like 100 people weren't good plays and like 2 of them came through.
Yeah. It's like you can tell who knows how to like understand probability. Like I care about any individual play in DFS. It's a math problem. You take everybody's name away, it would change everything. Like I would do the exact same thing and never notice. Nikola Jokic is 28% owned on FanDuel and 30% owned on DraftKings. This is the first spot where I see the ownership and think that it's wrong/off. I don't think that Jokic should be more owned than Giannis today. I'm happy for it to be close. I don't think it should be 30-20, but Giannis having the dual eligibility too makes it impossible. That said, I also have Nikola Jokic at 1.79 fantasy points per minute in 35 minutes. He looks incredible.
Yeah, you basically, and the matchup's great too. You basically get, so like all season long, Jokic has been the only player that's a better point per minute guy than Giannis. And he plays a few more minutes. And so that always makes it so even though Giannis has the preferred positional eligibility, Jokic still looks better. But now today, when you take Holiday out, Giannis gets a bump to not only his rates by a little bit, but to his projected playing time and puts him more in line with Jokic, then the positional eligibility makes it so I think I'm with you. He's a little bit cheaper. The positions are better. I absolutely love Jokic here. But especially if Giannis is lower owned, if for whatever reason I can only play one or only choose one, I would actually go to Giannis first.
So would I, and happily. And I'm expecting to get a bunch of both. Like I said, on the process show this morning, Jokic and Giannis were both in my optimal. Nobody has to know that playing Jokic against the Sacramento Kings is a good play. What do you want to do with Will Barton and Aaron Gordon, who I think are the two other potentially interesting pieces? Barton's getting ownership. Aaron Gordon isn't. I'm sort of a little bit more interested in Gordon than Barton just because of that.
Yeah, I think they're both fine. I'm not prioritizing either one. They're both just kind of fine low-owned plays, like Evan Fournier was last night, which nobody ever argued with.
Right, exactly. Barton pulling 18% ownership feels like a lot for this slate, but I think it's warranted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think he gets 39 minutes again, but even if he plays 34, 35 here, he's going to look pretty good.
9 minutes to go in this one. We've got 2 more games to get through, so I will try to say a little bit less, but this one's easy-ish, although it could be awful. We don't know. Atlanta Hawks, no DeAndre Hunter, no Gorgie Jang. Questionable tag on Trae Young, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and John Collins. Cam Reddish is probable. If everybody's in for Atlanta, I don't really want anybody at all.
Yeah, this one's tough. I mean,
it's impossible to talk about right now.
Yeah, if everybody's in, I don't really want anything. Everybody's been priced up a bit from the absences. I guess the one thing I would specifically say is if John Collins, and especially if John Collins and Bogdanovic are out and Young is in, I want to be getting to Young.
Yes, 100%. I agree with you.
And then obviously whatever, secondary pieces are elevated as a result, play them too. I just specifically wanted to reiterate how unbelievably good from a fantasy standpoint Trae Young is without those guys.
This one's just truly impossible for right now. There are too many moving pieces. So out of Atlanta, on to the Lakers. Luckily, this is another easy team to talk about. LeBron James, 20% owned on FanDuel, 14 on DraftKings. Russ is 18% owned on FanDuel, where he's down to $8,600. $8,600 Russell Westbrook would have been 100% of lineups 18 months ago. Very different now. Malik Monk, I think, looks still sort of interesting because he plays a ton of minutes. Stanley Johnson is back. This feels like a matchup, if Atlanta's healthy, that Dwight Howard also gets run once again. I'm happy to get to LeBron. No real preferences. I prefer Giannis. I prefer Jokic. But LeBron looks okay. That's probably all that I want to try to. I don't even want to say prioritize because I don't even think LeBron's a priority.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think this is a Dwight Howard start. But on this slate, I don't think you're getting there. I was interested in it the other day. It was a much different slate here. I'm not messing around with Dwight Howard's probably 20 to 22 minutes.
I think it could still just be Stanley Johnson now that he's there again.
Do they really want to put LeBron on Capella?
Probably not. But look, I gave Dwight Howard minutes. We're talking about two different things. I think he's playing today, one way or the other. Sure. Starting, coming off the bench, either direction.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it doesn't really matter for DFS because you probably weren't going to play Stanley Johnson regardless.
No, not at all.
LeBron still looks good. He's expensive. He's averaged 1.7 DraftKings points per minute in the 12 games he's played without Davis. Somehow that makes him the third best point per dollar guy on the slate, which is insane. But it's just kind of an ownership thing. I think Giannis is clearly the better play. I think Jokic is clearly the better play. If you're getting a substantial ownership discount, there's obviously nothing wrong with going to LeBron. Right now, we have him at 14% on DraftKings. We have Jokic at 30. We have Giannis at 20. It kind of just, it's one of those, it depends what you need in your lineup. But if you're good on low-owned guys, you have enough, your ownership is where you want it, I would go to Giannis over LeBron. Monk looks fine at 5,800. Wouldn't call him a priority or anything. 8,600 on Westbrook, I think, is fine. But again, there's just so many good plays. Like, I don't know off the top of my head what the positions on Brunson are, but 8,600 on Westbrook still isn't as egregious or even close as 5,300 on Brunson is.
Point guard, shooting guard.
Okay, so you could play them together at least.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to talk about here for the Lakers. How would you compare LeBron to Harden and Durant? I see them all as like basically.
God, I forgot about them.
I actually like slightly prefer Harden and Durant, but it's for all intents and purposes, they're in the same bucket.
Yeah, they're in the same bucket. I prefer them just because they're $1,000 and $1,300 less expensive, which, yeah, salary only matters to a certain extent tonight, but you're still talking about being able to upgrade a player probably.
Yeah, they all have the same ceiling.
Yep.
All right, let's close it out with one of the easier spots to talk about. Well, at least half of it. Cleveland Cavaliers, highest owned guy in this game on either FanDuel or DraftKings is 6.7% owned Jared Allen. Rondo is available here. Chetty Osman is back and available here. Am I missing anybody else for Cleveland? No, still no Isaac Okoro. He is out with an actual injury. I can't imagine wanting to play much of anything here from Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot. Allen, Mobley, both fine if they happen to land in a lineup, but yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's just not it.
Same goes for Garland, really, and Love, but yeah, it's just if I happen to see them in a lineup, my reaction will be, oh, that spot's probably going to fail, but at least it has like a fighting chance.
This next spot is why I think the Christian Wood ownership is too weird. We've got the Portland Trailblazers here. Portland is without Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Larry Nance. Now, we don't know the status of Cody Zeller, who is still working his way back. Could be in here. Don't know. We've got Yusuf Nurkic, 21% owned on FanDuel and 8.5% owned on DraftKings, where he's 7% owned. I'm playing way more than 8.5% Yusuf Nurkic in this spot today. I don't understand why he would be 8% owned or owned less than Christian Wood.
Yep, I'm with you. I have no idea. He played, so we had talked about this the other day. He played 26 minutes in his first game back after a 2-week absence. That was a good sign. He had been playing 30-plus minutes consistently before the absence because the front court was a little bit banged up. He didn't have Zeller. Now, you may or may not have Zeller in his first game back. You don't have Nance. Nurkic is coming off a game where he played 33.2 minutes. You have all sorts of usage available with Lillard and McCollum still out. So far this season, without those two on the floor, Nurkic has played a total of 133 minutes. He has a 29.3% usage rate, 1.29 DraftKings points per minute, 19.5% assist percentage. Cleveland's interior defense is good, without a doubt, but I don't know how 7K Nurkic isn't more popular when he's likely to play 32 to 34 minutes if he avoids foul trouble and or trying to punch a guy in the face.
Whiteside is obvious chalk at 3,500. He's the best center played today. Nikola Jokic and Giannis both have center eligibility. They should both be popular for reasons for long that don't have anything to do with being a center. I think Yusuf Nurkic is the best center option after that today. He's at 8% ownership. I'd rather have him over Christian Wood. Would you rather have Nurkic or Bobby Portis?
Nurkic.
Yeah.
Similar per minute production. I feel more confident in Nurkic's minutes.
Yeah. I gave him 32 minutes. I could give him more, but that's where I'm at. Love Nurkic. One of my favorite plays today. Happy to go back to Nas Little at 4,800. Anthony Simons is 6,200 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel. 6,200 is fine. Norm Powell is still fine. I think Nurkic is the main priority, but Powell, Simons, Little are the guys that I want to get to here.
Yeah, agreed. And also somebody in chat just made a good point too. Not that it really sways anything, especially when Nance is out. Like the Blazers are going to play Nurkic regardless, but it's a big front court too. So there's not even a chance that it ends up being a weird like small ball spot. Yeah, and Little, Simons, Powell, I think all look fine. Powell actually leads the team in usage without Lillard or McCollum on the floor at 29.9%, just edging out Nurkic. So 0.93 DraftKings points per minute for him, but should play a lot of minutes. Simons played 39 minutes last game, so continues to just play huge minutes. His salary jumped again. I still have trouble expecting him to like continually play close to 40 minutes, but at 6,200, still plenty of value there.
All righty. GPP videos, injury videos, and the deeper dive with me again later today.
Yes, sir.
There it is, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Shout out once again to PrizePicks for being the presenting sponsor. Hit that like button. Again, we're at 150. We should be over 200. It is going to be a wild day. There's a ton of value to be found. Keep your eye on the news. Follow at Awesemo NBA if you want to get the updates. We're out of here. Peace.